This is the Ellie Aline crossbody bag pattern video 1. It is for pages 6, step 1 through page 7, step 15. And it begins with Let's Start Sewing. My name is Avenel Savage and I am the designer of Abby's Place Creations, and this is my bag pattern for the Ellie Aline crossbody bag. For this video you will need pieces A1 and A2, which is your front and back exterior pieces. You'll need piece C, which is your front overlay, piece D, which is your back overlay, piece G, which is the back pocket, and piece H, which is the pocket lining. So we're going to begin. We lay the pocket and the lining aside along with the exteriors. We're going to begin with piece C and D, which are the front and back overlays. Now in your instructions it tells you to place a piece of double-sided tape on your back, on both of the backs of these pieces. Just lay these pattern pieces aside. And if it helps you to draw a line, I have drawn one on my overlay pieces to correspond with what I'm going to turn down, which is 1/4 of an inch. So I've made a line 1/2 of an inch down. And you're going to place a piece of double-sided tape on your overlay, the top edge, where you're going to fold that down. On both of those pieces. I am making my bag, the gusset and the front and back overlays and my flap out of vinyl. If you are using leather for your accent pieces, then you may want to leave a raw edge on the top of your piece instead of folding it down, and in which case you'll need to cut off 1/4 of an inch to allow for your gusset stitching to line up properly with your front and back overlays. So let's remove the double-sided tape, exposing the sticky part, and we'll go ahead and turn that down 1/4 of an inch on both of these pieces. You may need to use a few clips to help hold that in place. The vinyl that I'm using is actually Naugahyde, which is an upholstery grade vinyl, so it's a little bit stiffer to work with than maybe the vinyl that you have chosen. Okay, once you have those folded down, then we'll lay them aside and get your back pocket piece. Back pocket piece and your back pocket lining, pieces G and H. On your back pocket piece, we're going to flip it over, and on the wrong side, right up against the edge of that pocket piece, we're going to put a row of double-sided tape to help hold that in place when we fold those edges over, just like we've done with the overlays. We're going to prepare this pocket piece to go on the back of the exterior, and this will help to keep those pieces folded over and secured until we can get them stitched on. And the other thing that we're going to do is take your lining piece. We're going to put a little bit of double-sided, or fabric glue on the back of the lining piece, and we're going to attach it to the back pocket. We're going to just lay that down right over the top of that Decoville light that you've got as the stabilizer for your back pocket piece, and just press that down so it adheres to the pocket piece. And once you get that pressed down, then you're going to start taking your double-sided tape off and laying the edge over of the vinyl. And you want to lay that edge over to where it covers the edge of your lining. The raw edge of your lining needs to be covered. We're going to do the sides first, and then we'll do the top of the pocket. And there again, you might want to use a few clips to just hold it all in place. Now we'll take the double-sided tape off the top edge, and again we're going to fold it over so that it covers that edge of your lining. You're going to have a little bit of a gap both at the top of your pocket where it folds over and on each corner edge. And what I'm going to do with that is just going to snip that edge to where I can lay my top piece down, and then I'm going to just snip the edge off of that excess there so that my side piece will lay down flat over it, if you can see that. And do the same thing with the other side. And then in the middle, I'm going to snip right in the middle and just make a little V on that to take the excess out of that top edge. And then your pieces should just kind of edge in together so that you've got the excess taken out of that top edge. There we go. Now once you get that all turned in, then you'll want to take your pocket piece over to your sewing machine and do a line of top stitching right along the top edge of your pocket. So let's do that. I'll move over here to the sewing machine. Okay, so now you should have your top edge top stitched right along the very top of the edge of it. And now we're going to attach this to the exterior piece. So let's move back over here. And get one of your exterior pieces. Well, you will want to determine where the center is on both your pocket piece and your exterior piece, so you can get your pocket centered correctly. And then you're going to put that piece 1 inch up from the bottom of your pocket or your exterior edge. And if you can't see your mark very well, like me, you can take a measuring tape and make sure that you are the exact distance from each edge to your pocket. I also like to put a little bit of a row of double-sided tape on my exterior piece to just kind of hold that pocket in place while I stitch around it, since you can't use pins with vinyl or with leather, so because the pinholes will show. So I depend a lot on double-sided tape. Double check that to make sure I'm in the right place. And then I'll just press that down a little bit, get that pocket where I want it to be. And now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and make a line of top stitch along the edge, but all the way around, so that it will be attached to the exterior piece. I like to pull my threads to the back and tie them off as much as possible so that I don't cut the threads on the front side and have some little threads showing. Now, so we've got our pocket attached to the exterior piece now. And what we're going to do for the rest of this pocket is to make a stitch line down at a diagonal down each side of the pocket. And then in that area that's stitched, we're going to place our rivets for the exterior embellishments. I'm going to turn around and make that line. Well, let's see, I want to show you that so you'll know kind of how I do that. So I'm going to start this in 1 inch at the top, 1 inch from the edge, and I'm just going to make a little mark there on each side, and that's where my angle is going to go to from the bottom edge of the corner of that pocket to that line at the top. And I'm just going to make some little dots down here as I go along to kind of give me a guideline of where to stitch. So now you can see that I've got lines, my marks made on each side of the pocket so that I can know where I'm going to make my stitch line. You just go slow and try to keep that next mark in line so you know where you're going with your stitches to get your line straight. Okay, I can snip these bottom ones off because they're going to be covered up by the overlay, so I don't have to worry about those little thread ends showing. So here we are, we've got our stitch lines made down the side of the on each side of the pocket, as you can see. So now we're going to go back to the table and make our marks for our little rivets. Now, when you do the rivets, you're going to start at the top, and from the top edge of that pocket and in the center of that area between the two stitch lines, 1/2 inch down, you're going to make your first mark for the rivet. Then you're going to go 1 inch down for the next one from the first mark. So there will be 1 inch between each one of your rivets, with 1/2 inch from the top being where you set the first one. And you'll have 5 rivets down each side. So here, as you can see, I started mine 1/2 inch down from the top, placed 1 inch between each rivet for 5 rivets. And you go to the other side and do the same thing. 1/2 inch from the top is where your first rivet will be set, then 1 inch down for each one. So now we've got rivets marks on both sides of the pocket, as you can see, and that's where we're going to put our holes for our rivets. I use a rivet press, and so I've already got my press set up to make the holes. Let's see, I hope you can see this. Okay, let's move it over a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to put my rivet hole punch right where that little mark is, where I placed my first rivet. And it's going to make my hole. Okay. And go down to the next one. All the way down on each one of those little marks, I'm going to make a hole punch. It's kind of tight on that last one, so be sure you get it in the right place and you don't cut your thread. Okay, so here are the holes. I've got the holes all punched, and now I'm going to switch out my hole punch and put the rivet press in. Die to set the rivets. You'll need 10 rivets, and I use double cap rivets for this part of the riveting. And these are medium rivets that I'm using. Now I've just placed the caps on there. I'm going to do the setting, the actual setting with my rivet press. And I place these rivets in with the post from the front to the back with the double cap on the back side. So when I set it, I place my good side down and press on the back side. Okay, so here are my rivets. I've got them all set on both sides. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is get the back overlay that I have folded the 1/4 of an inch down on the top edge, along the top edge. I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape on this overlay so that when I put it on the exterior, it'll kind of hold it in place, keep it from moving whenever I do my top stitching. And I'm going to align the bottom edge of my overlay with the bottom edge of my exterior piece and press that area down where I have the double-sided tape to hold it in place. So now whenever I top stitch this, it should stay where I've put it. So now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and place a row of top stitching right along the edge, 1/8 inch from the edge, so that it will attach the overlay to the exterior piece. And I do my top stitching with a stitch length of 5 on my cylinder arm machine. I think that makes a pretty stitch, that stitch length, so that's what I use. Okay, now I've got my top stitching done, and I'm going to take and make a line of stitching all the way around this outside edge, just to hold that piece as one, so that when I put the gusset on, it doesn't slip. The overlay will stay attached like it should as one piece to the back. Okay, so now here's the back piece with the pocket attached, and I'm going to lay this one aside and get the front and the front overlay. I'm going to do the same thing with the front overlay as I did with the back. I'm going to put a line of double-sided tape on the back side of the overlay so that it will stick to the exterior and not shift while I'm doing my top stitching. Match it up with your bottom edge and your side edges. And stick that down. I do kind of like to make sure that my overlays are going to match up when I get to the actual gusset part and putting the gusset in. So I kind of look to make sure that I'm at the right place with my top stitching and that I have my overlays placed correctly on the exterior pieces. You just want to go slow on the curved edges so that your top stitching is as close to 1/8 inch from the edge as possible and even all along your overlay. Okay, and now we're going to go around the bottom edge of the vinyl overlay, just like we did with the back. Okay, now we've got the front overlay finished, and the next thing that I'm going to do is put my handmade label right in the middle of this exterior, just above the overlay. I'm going to measure the center. Kind of helps me to know, to judge where I'm putting that handmade label to get it centered properly on the front piece. I use a seam ripper to make the little slits for my handmade labels. And I also put some fray block on my slits when I make them, so that I don't have any upholstery fabric that's fraying. Whenever I make those slits, and over time, that upholstery fabric frays real easily. So, try to keep that from fraying as much as possible. that one a little bit lower. And another thing that I do is I back my handmade labels and my rivets if I need to take up a little bit of space and kind of protect the fabric some. I put a little piece of Decoville Heavy on top of the backing plate. That keeps the rough edges from the backing plate from rubbing against my lining and makes it a little bit cushier for that back plate. So there we are. We've got our handmade label on there, and the overlay is in place on the front, as well as the pocket and overlay on the back. So that concludes the video, this first video. So I'll lay these aside, and the next thing that we'll be doing is the front flap. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you with the next video. Bye-bye.